The Y-Wing is one of the oldest and most well-known bomber-class starfighters in Star Wars. It dates all the way back to the Clone Wars and is the main bomber class for the New Republic faction in Star Wars Squadrons. Much like its TIE bomber counterpart, it is able to dish out a hefty amount of damage with its rotary cannons, effectively take out TIE defender shields with its automatic ion cannon, and is the only class that can effectively AI farm for the team. So, despite all these changes, why does nobody like playing the Y-Wing? Well, we'll be diving into that as well as looking at the 5.0 balance update changes that might switch people's opinions on the starfighter. So, without wasting any more of your time guys, let's dive right into the video. To help get you a deeper understanding of the Y-Wing, let's talk stats. The Y-Wing has 1200 hull and has 1200 max shields. The max acceleration is 121, max speed is 110, and maneuverability is 70. Just for comparison, it has the same maneuverability as the U-Wing, with the X-Wing having 5 more maneuverability and the A-Wing having 10 more maneuverability. So these numbers should give you a better idea of just how impactful maneuverability actually is. But what's interesting is that the Y-Wing is actually slower than all support classes, with its max speed being 20 less than the U-Wing. This is actually quite significant, so we'll get into this a little bit later on in the video. The main primary weapon that's used across all Y-Wing builds is the heavy rotary cannon with a DPS of 643. This DPS is actually quite high, but when you look at the TIE Bombers version, that comes in at 766.7 DPS. That's 120 extra damage per second to the TIE Bomber. So yeah, the damage difference between the Y-Wing and the TIE Bomber is immense. What makes it worse for the Y-Wing is that its max HP is evenly split towards hull and shields. So for example, TIE Bomber slapping on a reinforced hull gives you 50% extra health, and 50% of 2200 is significant, putting the TIE Bomber at 3300 hull. For sacrificing acceleration and maneuverability, you're getting a lot with that type of hull. For the Y-Wing, not so much. For the reinforced hull on a Y-Wing, you're getting 60% extra max health, but 60% of 1200 is just not that much. And unfortunately, things only get more complicated from here. The Y-Wing is one of the very few New Republic ships that can't run fortified deflector. This is like the shield version of reinforced hull. It's very powerful on X-Wings and A-Wings alike, but for Y-Wings, the option is just not there, so many people go with overloaded shield. For overloaded shield, your shield regen rate is decreased by 75%, but in return, you take 25% less primary damage and 50% less secondary damage. But the negative is, once your shields are gone, they do not regen until you go and get resupplied at the flagship. This is actually a very powerful component, but unfortunately, if anyone's running ion missiles, that will completely counter your overloaded shields. And unfortunately, the meta encourages a lot of people to run ion missiles. Besides that, the Y-Wing does have a very powerful primary and has an effective range of engine types. So those are the stats and the comparisons for the Y-Wing. But now let's talk about why people don't like running the Y-Wing in fleet battle mode. But just to clarify, people have to run this ship. It's just far too effective at AI farming, it's just that people don't like playing it. For one, your maneuverability and speed is awful. You're a high priority pick when you're an AI farmer. It's really important for interceptors and TIE defenders to take you out to stop you from farming. And unfortunately, your maneuverability and speed makes you a very easy target. And as mentioned in the 5.0 balance update video, you heavily rely on your dogfighters to survive, those being your A-Wing players. This is quite frustrating because the TIE Bomber doesn't necessarily have the same issue. Its maneuverability and max speed is much higher than the Y-Wings, and as mentioned before, its primary weapon damage is so much higher. So if they catch themselves in a little bit of trouble, yes, they can joust with other dogfighters. For the Y-Wing, not so much, especially when they're running ion missiles. So to summarize, you're a high priority pick, you're very slow, you rely on your other teammates for survival, and you have a big hitbox to boot. This is why AI farming as a TIE bomber is so much more effective than a Y-wing. However, things have changed slightly with these balance update changes. As of the 7th of April 2021, the 5.0 balance update change states that the Y-wing gets an increased boost regeneration rate of 30% and a decreased boost consumption rate of 43%. I dived very lightly into these changes during the balance update video covering these patch notes, but these changes allow the Y-wing to make more riskier moves, much like the TIE bomber can. At the beginning of a fleet battle where we're deciding who's going to be on attack or defense, the TIE bomber can risk going in a little bit further into the front line, because once they get attacked, they can power shunt to their engines and use their extra maneuverability to get away. Before, the Y-wing couldn't do that, but because boost regeneration rate and boost consumption rate is now different compared to the TIE bombers, this can actually make up for the Y-wing not being able to power shunt. These, with the overloaded shields, definitely could make the Y-wing a lot more nimble. Of course, this doesn't solve many of the issues the Y-wing actually has. It is a low threat ship overall, and I don't think there's going to be any balance update changes to tweak that, but it's nice to see some boost power be given to the Y-wing that the TIE bomber doesn't have. Remember, the TIE bomber gets all of these benefits for simply not having shields. And while shields are very powerful, the reinforced hull definitely makes up for it for the TIE bomber. Besides, they can sacrifice that extra maneuverability and boost speed that they get for being a TIE bomber. So these changes will definitely put the Y-wing in a better scenario. But as a verdict, despite having a rotary cannon as primary, the Y-wing is not a high threat ship to joust with. Its maneuverability definitely makes it a very easy target and suffers those borderline difficulties that the B-wing has as well. That, coupled with it being a high priority pick for the enemy team and having those large hitboxes as mentioned earlier, it honestly feels like this ship can only really do AI farming. In terms of actually being a bomber on capital ships, no, not really. The TIE bomber on the other hand definitely can. You may catch me trying to take out the shield generators with a TIE bomber on the MC-75, but you will certainly not see my Y-wing get anywhere close to a Star Destroyer flagship. But those are the stats, the player opinions, and my opinions as to why nobody likes playing the Y-wing. The only difference from the B-wing is that you actually have to play it in the game. Who knows, if the B-wing can AI farm as well, things might be a little bit different. But that pretty much summarizes our video on why nobody likes playing the Y-wing. What do you think about these stats and opinions? Do you agree with them? Do you not? Do you think the Y-wing needs more of a buff, or do you think it's perfectly fine as it is? Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. I read all of them, and I'll try to get back to some of you as well. And of course, if you want more videos like these on EcksToo, definitely hit that like button so I know to make more in the future. But besides that, I've been Charlie, you've been watching EcksToo, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.